the infrastructure bill by the end of next week. They may hold a vote next week. Pelosi apparently wants to do that in the House. I think it's unlikely they're going to get this bill together by then. We are going to have, increasingly, there's going to be recriminations about how this, what was once an incredibly ambitious bill, is now been just eviscerated in many, many ways. But first, last night, Joe Biden went on CNN for a town hall. And one of the first things that came up, or one of the first things we're going to talk about, is the filibuster. There has been talk that because the Republicans shot down Joe Manchin's election bill, that he would maybe come around on some type of filibuster reform for election bills. And I think that is unlikely, although there have been more Senate institutionalists who have come around on this a little bit in the past couple of days, but it remains to be seen. But one of those Senate institutionalists that have come around is Joe Biden. Here is that exchange between him and Anderson Cooper last night in a CNN town hall.
When it comes to voting rights
is equally as consequential.
When it comes to voting rights, just so I'm clear, though, you would entertain the notion of doing away with the filibuster on that one issue. Is that correct?
And maybe more.
And maybe other issues.
He's looking at the ground. Project strength and look at the audience. It's just a little odd.
Right.
Anyway.
We should say Angus King and John Tester were, sort of have come around a little bit, and they're, similarly situated as a Manchin. It's good that Biden is now saying this because I think maybe it's indication that he understands that Joe Manchin will always take 3 steps away from where Joe Biden is.
Right.
And let's talk a little bit more about the sort of the performative aspects of what Joe Biden was doing last night. First off, and I vowed to myself, not to harp on the failures of the Democratic leadership, specifically Schumer and Biden. I think there's some issues with what Pelosi has done, but they passed the bill in the House. And that, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. The failure of the Biden administration to read the room, the failure of the Democratic leadership in the Senate to know the caucus, to share the fact that Joe Manchin, that they had signed a contract with Joe Manchin.
Yeah. So this is Schumer.
And
Biden, of course.
And Biden and the White House. I mean,
yeah.
And here is just a prime example. Look, it's quite possible that there was never a universe in which there was going to be a $3.5 trillion bill or a $6 trillion bill. It's quite possible. So the only assessment that we can make is, did the leadership of the Democratic Party do everything that they could in a competent way to attempt to pass a $3.5 trillion bill or a $6 trillion bill, whatever it is? And I just don't think there's any way you can assess this and say the answer is yes. Case in point, Joe Biden is doing a town hall last night with CNN. Is he doing it because he just hasn't had a chance to talk to Anderson Cooper in a long time?
Is he doing it because he now needs to go on the offensive when he could have done that months and months ago instead of playing prevent defense and having hashtag trust the senatorial process? I mean, that's what he's been doing for months and months.
If he's out there trying to push the reconciliation bill across the finish line, his folks are tacitly conceding that there is value in him going out and pushing it. There is no less resistance to this bill now than there was 6 months ago. In fact, I would say the opposite. And so if in their mind it's to work today, in mid-October, late October, there's no reason why it couldn't have worked in May
Now let's do it after he just sheds popularity for a couple months.
Exactly.
Right.
So here he is. This is the he is asked about Medicare. Let's do that. Originally, the provision that most people were hoping for was a drop in the Medicare eligibility age to 60 and an expansion of the services for Medicare recipients. And let's be clear on this. There is a lot of reasons to do this on just simply a human level. But as a political matter, people over the age of 65 broke towards Biden in a very surprising way in the last election. If you want to make sure they're there in the midterms, and you want to make sure that they're there in 2024, they are high propensity voters. They are very aware of the benefits that they get from their government. And this would have been an excellent way of doing it. Here's Biden with Cooper.
One of the other things that Democrats are looking to do is to expand Medicare to include dental, vision, and hearing as well. Given all the negotiations that are going on, will all three of those still be covered?
That's a reach. And the reason why it's a reach, I think it's a good idea. And it's not that costly in relative terms, especially if we allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. But here's the thing. Mr. Manchin is opposed to that, as is, I think, Senator Sinema is as well.
Opposed to all of them?
Opposed to all three, because they don't want, he says he doesn't want to further burden Medicare.
Yes, and that's BS.
Well, she's also against the negotiating of the pharmaceuticals by Medicare, which would have provided all the savings that you needed for these things. Now, here is, we mentioned this on Wednesday, the FDA is looking to get hearing aids to be non-prescription. So when you start hearing the inclusion of hearing aids into the expansion of Medicare, understand this is BS. This is
window dressing.
Well, it's not a question. It is a distraction.
Yeah.
It is an attempt to say we can trade away the dental, which is really the big expense here. We can trade away the dental. We can trade away the vision, also a big expense because of we allow for such monopolistic practices when it comes to eyewear.
And just to make it clear to people, because you mentioned it earlier, where we started with these negotiations was a twofold conversation that Bernie Sanders was pushing to include dental, hearing, and vision in Medicare and expand those benefits, and to lower the eligibility age. Bernie and the progressives have all but conceded that massive component of the lowering of the eligibility age to 60. And now we're talking about cutting what the entire caucus seemingly agreed to in terms of expanding the benefits in an additional way. I mean, that's suicide politically, as you mentioned. And that's purely because the Biden administration kind of just let the game play out in front of them and didn't take an active role here.
We want to be clear, too, that we had that issue with the question of, do you invite the Republicans in? I mean, this, we'll go through the sort of the timeline. I mean, because I think this is going to be helpful at one point, or depressing at one point.
And
it's helpful and depressing.
It's the same flaw that he has with the Republicans. Like, I trust these people to negotiate in good faith, and I'm going to let the negotiations play out in this way, as opposed to taking an aggressive offensive approach, which now he has to be like, oh, please save the hearing portion of this like Medicare expansion bill. They
slow walked this reconciliation bill.
Yeah.
Maybe not on purpose. They were under the completely bizarre belief that they needed to open this up to the Republicans and walk them into the White House in the spring. And then it was Portman and Sinema. And all the while giving people like Manchin and Sinema and the Chamber of Commerce and the drug lobby and the dentists the opportunity to amass war chests and strategies to fight this bill. Mm-hmm. Huge mistake.